An unheroic hero. Izuku and MeiMei. Izuku looked at Shuka with a mix of nervousness and desperation. He had no idea how he had reached this point, but there he was, heart pounding, ready to say the words he had been holding inside for so long. Shuka-chan, I like you. Please, will you go out with yourself? His voice trembled, and his cheeks flushed as he realized his mistake. Ah, wait, I meant with me, not yourself. Not that there's anything wrong with you, I just misspoke. Shuka looked at him for a moment, a slight smile curving her lips before she gave him an answer that would make him incredibly happy. Izuku. I love you too. And yes, I'd love to go out with you. In an instant, Shuka wrapped her arms around Izuku, pulling him close and pressing a soft kiss to his lips. Izuku felt his body react to the embrace, his hands instinctively resting on her waist. That moment, with the sun setting on the horizon, felt like a scene from a romantic movie. A kiss that marked the beginning of something greater, something that would last forever. Years passed, but the memory of that first kiss remained engraved in his mind. Now, Izuku stood outside a church, watching as everything unfolded, dressed in an elegant suit that accentuated his figure. Happiness was reflected on his face, but in his eyes, there was something else, a glimpse of sadness and pain, a shadow that had settled in his heart ever since everything changed and the happiness he once had turned out to be nothing but a lie. Suddenly, the church doors opened, and there she was, Shuka, in a radiant wedding dress that made her look even more beautiful than she already was, her joyful expression giving her an almost angelic aura. A delicate veil covered her face, making her seem like a vision pulled from a dream. Each step she took toward the altar was slow, and with every step, Izuku felt as if a dagger were piercing his heart. Standing there, he couldn't take his eyes off her. He smiled, but it was clear there was no happiness in him, only a sharp pain in his chest. Shuka reached the altar, her eyes reflecting infinite love for the person standing before her. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion, and when the priest spoke those words, Izuku couldn't help but think that, despite everything, Shuka had never seen him the way he had seen her. Shuka was not his future, she had only been an illusion he had wanted to believe in. You may kiss the bride, the priest said. That kiss sealed the end of a chapter for Izuku. He watched as Shuka became another man's wife, and though she had always been his love, for Shuka, Izuku had only been a fleeting part of her life, something replaceable, something that no longer deserved her attention. The love he had left faded in that moment, making it clear that he meant nothing to her. Watching it all unfold before his eyes was something he couldn't bear. At that moment, something inside him changed forever. 5 years later, Izuku, the former hero once known for his bravery, had fallen to the lowest ranks of hero society. He had once been the symbol of peace, the young man who had defeated Afo and Shigaraki, but now he was nothing more than Deku, the useless hero. While his former friends remained in the top 20, he had plummeted to rank 1000, the lowest position in the hero rankings. No one showed him respect, as if everything he had done in the past had been erased from collective memory. Now, all that remained was the shadow of a man who was no longer remembered for his achievements but seen only as a walking failure, a man who no longer deserved the title of hero. The scene shifted to a conference room where the highest-ranking heroes discussed the latest villain in criminal activities. Everything seemed trivial to them until a voice broke the quiet atmosphere of the meeting. Well, this meeting is officially over. You can all leave, Momo said, closing the discussion without much emotion. But before anyone could stand, Mina raised her hand, her expression serious. Wait, I want to talk about something before we go. Kendo looked at her, surprised, not understanding why Mina would bring up a subject in a space usually reserved for official matters. What is it, Mina? You don't usually bring up personal issues in these meetings, Kendo asked, curious. Mina took a deep breath before speaking. It's about Izuku. A heavy silence filled the room. Izuku's name was a delicate subject, a taboo among the heroes. No one mentioned him, avoiding his name as if the mere thought of him made them uncomfortable. Shuka was the first to break the silence, her voice cautious. What about Izuku? At the mention of his name, Bakugo couldn't help but let out a disdainful grunt. What about that idiot who tried to steal my woman? His tone was filled with barely restrained rage. The relationship between Shuka, Bakugo, and Izuku had been tense ever since an incident a few years ago, right after the wedding. One night, while drunk, Izuku had shown up at their house and begged Shuka to be his girlfriend, promising to forgive her for everything if she came back to him. The gesture had infuriated them both, and Bakugo hadn't wasted a second before punching Izuku for his disrespect. "For all I care, he can die." "I don't give a shit," Bakugo said coldly, the hatred in his words undeniable. Shuka nodded indifferently, as she had yet to forgive Izuku for what he had done, and added, "I feel the same. Izuku is no longer important to this society." Mina couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more behind those words, something that perhaps needed to be discussed, but no one seemed willing to do so. It frustrated her. Izuku had done so much for all of them, yet they acted as if they had completely forgotten him. Still, she pressed on. "Yeah. But I saw him the other day, and it was concerning." "So what?" Momo interrupted, visibly irritated. Her gaze toward Mina had changed, now reflecting a clear lack of respect for the man who had once been their comrade and friend. Mina tried to stay firm despite the tense atmosphere. He was in an alley, alone. Drinking himself unconscious. Completely alone, with no one by his side. "I think we should do something about it." Ida spoke in a low yet distant and cold tone. "We are not going to do anything. That is his life, and that's how he chose to live it." His words were final. Over the years, his respect for Izuku had faded, especially after the incident with Shuka. The fact that Izuku was now tarnishing the reputation of heroes only made Ida feel even more detached from the friend he once had. "But," Mina tried to insist. "No buts," Momo interrupted, clearly fed up with Mina's persistence. Her face was tense, filled with irritation and resentment toward Izuku. She no longer saw him the way she once did. "If you want to do something, do it on your own." The tension in the room had reached its peak. Mina was about to say something else when, suddenly, someone slammed their hand against the table, making everyone turn in shock. Uraraka, her expression serious and her gaze piercing, stood up from her seat. "You know what? You're all a bunch of idiots," she said, her voice cutting through the room like a blade, filled with fury toward those who refused to help Izuku. "What the hell is your problem?" Bakugo snapped, irritated, not understanding Uraraka's sudden shift in attitude. "Have you all forgotten how Izuku defeated Afo and Shigaraki?" Uraraka said, her words hitting them like a blow. "Have you forgotten that he was the one who took down the villains who threatened the peace you now enjoy? And more importantly, have you forgotten that he possesses one of the most dangerous powers in the world? If he loses control, he could become a threat to the entire city." She took a deep breath before adding, "And let's not forget that he always sacrificed himself for all of us. Does that mean nothing to you?" Shuka looked at her, not fully understanding what she was trying to say, and simply responded with cold indifference. "Then let's lock him up in Tartarus and let him rot alone." Uraraka looked at Shuka with pure hatred. The overwhelming sense of pain and injustice she felt was now uncontrollable, and the words spilled from her mouth, dripping with rage and indignation. "I don't know how you can say that, Shuka. I used to respect you, but after what happened with Izuku, after you betrayed him, only to leave him and start dating Bakugo, that was the worst thing you could have done to him. Besides playing with Izuku's feelings, you had the audacity to invite him to your wedding under the excuse that he was your best friend. And then, you didn't even let him in, claiming there was no room for him. You did all of that knowing full well that he was still in love with you. But you know what? That day, he could have made your life hell. He could have interrupted your wedding, ruined it completely. But he didn't. Have you already forgotten how he helped your family? How he was there for you, supporting you through your traumas, doing everything in his power to help your mother get out of the hospital? And look how you repaid him. You're an ungrateful bitch." Shuka stared at her in silence, as if those words had no effect on her whatsoever. Finally, with an empty look, she replied, "And what do you want me to do about it?" "Nothing. I know you won't do anything, because you're a heartless bitch without an ounce of dignity. I just needed to get this hatred off my chest." She turned to Mina, who had been listening in silence. "Now tell me, where did you see Izuku? And if you don't answer, I swear I'll punch you." Mina hesitated for a moment before responding. "I saw him near Dagoba Beach. Come on, I'll help you find him." Bakugo, who had remained silent until now, let out a smug laugh. As the number one hero, I order you to. I don't give a damn what you say. I'm a hero too, and I'm going to help my friend. Mina and Uraraka cut him off, shutting down his pathetic attempt at authority. Elsewhere, in an abandoned bar filled with dangerous people, Izuku sat alone, seemingly lost in his own world. Suddenly, a figure approached him, a young woman with a playful smile and a somewhat defiant gaze. "Excuse me, may I have your autograph, Hero Deku?" Izuku let out a bitter laugh. "Get lost. I don't know who the hell you are, but the hero you're looking for no longer exists. What a shame. You don't remember me, huh? And here I was, eagerly waiting for your autograph, so happy to see you again," she said with a teasing tone, twirling a lock of her hair between her fingers. With a playful smile, she added, "By the way, pigtails are my signature style. You like them, don't you? My name is MeiMei, but you can call me Mei." Izuku let out a grunt, feeling a sharp pain in his back as he tried to stand up. "Arg. My back. Well, nice to meet you, perfect stranger, but I won't remember your name. And I'm not a hero anymore. I lost the motivation, so, as a result, I don't give autographs." With a resigned sigh, he began walking toward the exit, but Mei wasn't about to let him go so easily. "Come on, just a small one. Please," she pleaded, her expression seemingly filled with sadness. Annoyed but not in the mood to argue, Izuku relented. "Fine, where do you want it?" Mei suddenly pulled out an axe as if it had appeared from nowhere, her eyes gleaming with a dangerous light. "Right here," she declared, rushing forward, ready to swing. Izuku, instantly aware of the sudden shift in her demeanor, dodged to the right just in time to avoid the attack. "What the hell are you doing?" With a malicious smile, Mei responded, "Oh, I just wanted you to sign my axe with your blood, that's all. Aren't you going to keep your word?" Izuku stared at her in disbelief, but he had to admit, the woman in front of him was strangely amusing. "I'm not exactly used to that kind of autograph, but I'll do it. If you can stop me from smashing that arrogant face of yours." Mei was caught off guard by his response, but she quickly grinned, clearly entertained. "I'll take you up on that. But you have to pay me $1 million. Deal?" Izuku said nothing. Without a second thought, he got into position, ready to fight. "First, survive. Then, I'll pay you." At an astonishing speed, both lunged at each other. Mei swung her axe with ferocity, while Izuku grabbed a metal fork that now crackled with the electricity of One for All, blocking her strike. "Didn't see that coming, did you?" he said, amused by her surprised expression. Meanwhile, not far from the bar, Mina, Uraraka, and Kendo were walking through a dark alley. Mina, her eyes filled with worry, spoke up. "I saw him in these alleys the other day, but I also heard rumors that he frequents a seedy bar nearby. And that it's full of villains." Uraraka, visibly surprised, frowned. "A villain bar? Why would he go there?" Kendo, with a grim expression, interrupted. "Haven't you heard the rumors about him over the last 3 years?" Uraraka shook her head. "No." Mina sighed and continued, her voice heavy with sadness. "They say he's useless, that he only reached the top hero rankings by sheer luck. That the only thing that made him stand out was his relationship with Shuka, and when he lost her, his life fell apart. And there are other rumors. Each one more disturbing than the last." Uraraka listened in silence, shocked by what she was hearing. "What kind of rumors?" Kendo, her expression cold, responded. "That he's a sexual deviant, a pedophile, a rapist. That he used his power to take advantage of countless women. And that's why Shuka left him and chose Bakugo instead. You know, the typical damsel in distress story, running into the arms of her shining knight to be saved. And since neither of them ever denied it, the whole world just assumed those rumors were true. That's why his reputation is in ruins." Uraraka swallowed hard, guilt and concern for her friend weighing on her. She had done nothing to help him, and now, she regretted it. "I didn't know. Poor Izuku." Then, she turned to Mina. "Where's the bar? We have to help him." Mina gave her the address. "It's right around the corner." At that moment, someone crashed through the wall and quickly got up, unaware that 3 familiar faces were standing right beside him. The girl's eyes widened in shock at the sight of their friend in such a state. Arg, damn it. You hit like my grandma. Izuku said with a tired smile, completely oblivious to the fact that he was being watched. Mei, unfazed, smirked with satisfaction as she stepped through the hole in the wall. And you punch like a little girl. Why don't you try hitting like a real man? The fight continued, their blows clashing with force. Izuku, taking advantage of the momentum from his attack, attempted a kick, but Mei reacted instantly, pulling out her axe and positioning it right in its path. If Izuku followed through with his kick, he could injure her. But he would also end up slicing his own leg. Time seemed to freeze at that moment. The three girls stood watching, waiting to see who would yield first. Izuku stopped his leg just a millimeter from the axe, his gaze locked onto hers. Mei flashed a victorious smile. If you go through with that kick, say goodbye to your leg, and to your hero career. Izuku, with an ironic smile, replied, you know, I left my hero career behind a long time ago. And I don't care about losing a leg. You can always stick it back on with a little effort. He laughed, as if the situation was nothing more than a joke. Mei looked at him, surprised. You're completely insane, you know that. Izuku shrugged, as if nothing could faze him. That's what happens when you're a sociopath, right? Mei let out a soft chuckle. Ah, then I guess we have that in common. My friends call me a sociopath, but I think they say it with love. What do you think? Izuku laughed, shaking his head in amusement. Heh, maybe we're both a little broken inside. But you know, there's one thing we can agree on. We don't like uninvited spectators. Couldn't agree more. Izuku turned his gaze toward the girls standing in front of him. There was no warmth, no joy in his expression for those he once called friends. Only a cold, emotionless stare. What do you say we knock them out so we can get back to our fight? Mei didn't hesitate to nod, accepting the idea without protest. With expert precision, she swung her axe in a spinning motion, stopping it abruptly and creating a powerful gust of wind. Without a word, Izuku moved toward Kendo in the blink of an eye. She never saw it coming. In an instant, his fist slammed deep into her stomach, her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed unconscious to the ground with a dull thud. The first one down. Heh, and they call themselves heroes. Mei didn't fall behind. With surgical precision, she struck Uraraka and Mina's legs, rendering them immobile without inflicting any severe or, at least, not too lethal injuries. And the other two were just as disappointing. Izuku crouched slightly, inspecting them to make sure they were completely out of commission. I said knock them out, not cripple them with your axe. Mei smiled calmly as she looked at the girls' motionless bodies. Relax, I only cut their joints a little. With some rest, they'll be fine. But you don't exactly seem distressed. Tell me, weren't they your friends? Izuku didn't show a hint of emotion. His face remained unreadable, cold, empty. My friends? I don't know what you're talking about. His voice was a chilling whisper, devoid of any warmth. I haven't had friends in years. Not since they all abandoned me. Those wretches on the ground mean nothing to me. His green eyes, once filled with hope, were now nothing but empty voids, stripped of all light. My so-called friends turned their backs on me. Even my best friend. What was her name? Toko? No. Doesn't matter. His voice dripped with contempt. She said I was nothing but despicable trash, that it disgusted her to have ever called me a friend, and she warned me never to go near her again. Then his contempt darkened into something far more sinister, his expression hardening. If those bastards ever cross my path again, I won't hesitate to break their legs without a shred of mercy. Mei burst out laughing, amused by the coldness in his voice. Damn, you're ice cold. Izuku shrugged. What you see is what the world turned me into. Yeah, social transformation, blah, 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 Mei interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. Heh, you're literally a villain with a hero's license. That's the perfect description. Exactly, Izuku smirked, but there was no emotion behind it. Except I don't commit crimes. Well, not many. Just a few fights and things like that, but since the heroes don't stop me, I guess what I do is technically legal. Mei looked at him, entertained. Oh, look at that. Yue's golden boy, the hero who took down All for One and his successor, admitting he's a criminal. What would your dear mentor say if he saw you now? Izuku's smile disappeared instantly. His eyes burned with a fury that was best left undisturbed. That idiot abandoned me. Just like my mother did. And if he dares show his face in front of me, I'll rip out every last one of his teeth. Mei laughed again. You know, I think you're the perfect example that criminals aren't born. They're made. Doesn't matter. Let's finish this, I'm getting tired. But Mei no longer wanted to fight. She raised her hands in surrender, and after some trivial conversation, the two of them disappeared into the darkness of the alley. Behind them, the girls remained on the ground, badly injured and humiliated, unable to do anything but wait for Kendo to wake up and help them. 5 hours later, the three of them managed to arrange another meeting with Japan's top heroes. However, many arrived irritated, feeling dragged into an issue they had no interest in. Momo sighed in frustration. Why did you call us? I was really busy. The response came before she could say anything else. A sharp sound echoed through the room as Uraraka slapped her with all her strength, knocking her roughly to the ground. Momo looked at her in fury and disbelief. What the hell is wrong with you, Uraraka? Uraraka's eyes burned with rage. Did you really tell Izuku that he was trash? That he was worthless? Momo frowned, feeling offended. And what if I did? What does it matter? I was just telling him the truth. Uraraka's anger flared with every word. What does it matter? Are you seriously saying that? We're talking about the guy who was always by your side, the one who supported you in your worst moments, the one who comforted you every time the men you dated only used you. And the same guy who helped you without asking for anything in return. The words hit like a hammer, but she refused to acknowledge any guilt. So what? In the end, he turned out to be the trash I always said he was, and no one can deny that. But before Momo could say anything else, she received a second slap. This time, Mina hit her even harder. Do you realize that your actions, and all of ours, have consequences? He hates us now, and it's all because of your stupidity. Ida crossed his arms, completely indifferent to their anger. And how does that affect us? Mina shot him a murderous glare. He said that if he ever saw us again, he'd break all our legs and leave us crippled. Bakugo clicked his tongue, an expression of utter disdain on his face. Let him try and see what happens. Kendo let out a deep sigh, filled with frustration, as if she couldn't understand why the situation kept spiraling further out of control. You seem to forget that he has the strongest quirk of all, plus 6 others. Bakugo, with his usual defiant attitude, merely scoffed. I'm stronger than him. Shuka, indifferent to the argument, crossed her arms as if the whole mess had a simple solution. Why is everyone so worried? If we all team up, we can take Izuku down easily. But Uraraka was the one to shatter her delusion. Says the damn bitch who made all this possible. The comment didn't sit well with Shuka, but Uraraka continued without giving her a chance to respond. Maybe before he wouldn't have been a problem, but now it looks like he's made friends with a woman strong enough to cut our joints in an instant and leave us completely out of commission. And Izuku no longer hesitates to attack. That makes him a threat, and with her strong support, he's even more dangerous. But the worst part is, I fear her influence will make Izuku even more aggressive towards us. Ida, always concerned for his friend's well-being, quickly asked. You fought against Izuku and her. Are you all okay? Mina, without missing a beat, responded with sarcasm. Why do you care? Ida, visibly confused, tried to explain himself. I care because. Mina cut him off, her gaze as sharp as a knife. Because we're your friends, right? That's the same thing you told Izuku, and yet you abandoned him. Kendo raised a hand, signaling for everyone to calm down. Enough. We need to focus entirely on figuring out how to prevent Izuku from becoming a villain. Because if he does, no one will be able to stop him. Somewhere else, more specifically, in Izuku's house. Izuku and Mei were caught in a wild, uncontrollable frenzy of passion. Mei was on top of him, completely dominating the moment with fast, precise movements. She moved her hips skillfully up and down. Between ragged breaths, Izuku managed to speak. Hey, weren't we fighting just half an hour ago? Mei, with a mischievous smile, kept her rhythm as she responded, what would you rather do? Fight. Or keep fucking? Izuku didn't have to think twice. Grabbing her by the waist, he flipped her onto her back against the bed in one swift motion. "I'm gonna fuck you so hard you won't be able to walk." Mei, clearly enjoying the shift in control, smirked with satisfaction. "I like how that sounds. Just don't disappoint me." And with that, without further hesitation, they continued their frenzied encounter. Back in the meeting room, the highest-ranking heroes were present, along with several familiar faces and former friends of Izuku. They had all gathered to discuss Izuku's situation, each with their own opinions on the matter. Eri, visibly upset, raised her voice. "Are you telling me that the person you once called your best friend, the one who was always there to help you when you needed it, who sacrificed himself over and over for others without asking for anything in return, is someone you're going to betray again? And on top of that, you plan to arrest him on fabricated charges just because it's convenient for you?" Ida, hesitant, tried to justify himself. But he attacked Ochako. Eri refused to accept his pathetic excuse. "And has she filed charges or anything like that?" Ida didn't answer. He simply remained silent. Eri, keeping her composure, gave her final verdict. "It's over. You're not doing anything to him. And don't even think about trying anything, do you hear me?" she shouted at the end. Mizu, who had been silently observing, nodded in agreement with Eri. "I agree. Izuku made a mistake, yes, but you were the first to betray his trust and turn your backs on him. As long as he doesn't cross the line, I see no reason to arrest him." Momo turned to Inko. "Mrs. Midoriya, do you know where Izuku is? Do you know where he lives now? We have to find him." Inko, visibly affected, responded with sadness. "No, to be honest, I don't. I haven't spoken to him in years. Ever since what happened with Shuka and those horrible rumors about him, I just distanced myself. And when none of those rumors were disproven, I didn't want anything to do with him." Mina shook her head in disbelief, frustrated that even his own mother was no help. "Great, our last hope of getting someone to help her own son just went straight down the drain." Toshinori, trying to calm the situation, spoke cautiously. "Young Mina, I ask that you—" Mina, not giving him the chance, cut him off sharply. "Ask me what? You idiot. You turned your back on Izuku too. You know he said that if he ever saw you again, he'd knock your teeth out. And trust me, I'm counting down the days until that happens." Uraraka, calmer, changed the subject. "And what about the woman we were talking about? Do we have anything on her in the system?" Kendo, with a serious tone, responded. "We have nothing on a woman that matches her description. So we have two options. Either she hasn't done anything wrong, or—" Mina finished the sentence. "Or there's no living witness left to report her or testify against her." Ida, convinced they were exaggerating, made a dismissive comment. "Don't you think you're overreacting a bit? It's just the two of them, but there's a lot of us." Kendo, already exhausted by Ida's attitude, snapped back harshly. "Listen, idiot. That woman was wielding a damn 6-foot axe like it was a hairpin. Her martial arts skills are on another level, and she single-handedly took down Mina and Uraraka at a speed that would make yours look like a joke." Uraraka, steering the conversation in another direction, asked with some concern, "Hey, where are Shuka and Bakugo?" Momo, maintaining her composure, explained. "They left as soon as Eri said we wouldn't take action. From what I've heard, they're planning to teach him a lesson about how not to become a villain." Mina, with a slightly malicious smile, commented, "Well, at least we know they'll be the first to attack. And for Izuku, anything he does will count as self-defense." All Might, with a serious tone, pointed at her. "You say that like you're happy about it." Mina, making no effort to hide her disdain, replied, "Of course I'm happy. Thrilled that both that egotistical idiot Bakugo and Shuka are about to get what they deserve." Inko, shaken by Mina's words, tried to defend her son. "But my son would never hit a woman." Uraraka let out a dry laugh and added, "Are you really defending him? Even though you believed all those rumors about your own son and abandoned him?" Kendo crossed his arms. "You have the wrong idea about the Izuku from years ago. This new Izuku. He himself said he was a sociopath, and he didn't hesitate to hit me. I still remember his eyes, that look of pure contempt toward me and, by extension, toward all of you. But I know that, deep down, the hero Deku is still there, the hero who smiled at everyone with that warmth that defined him. Kendo stood up, grabbed his uniform with one hand, and lifted it, revealing his stomach. What they saw horrified them. A massive bruise spread across his entire abdomen. According to the doctors, I'm fine. But if he had used just a bit more force, he would have pierced right through me or, at best, completely destroyed my internal organs. But he spared my life. If he had wanted to, he could have killed me, but he didn't. That's why I say there's still hope. Hope that things can go back to the way they were before. Meanwhile, at Izuku's house, he and Mei were lying on the couch, watching whatever she had picked on TV. Both of them were barely dressed. Izuku was only wearing shorts, while Mei was in her underwear. Izuku looked at Mei with a thoughtful expression. I didn't think you'd still be here when I woke up. Mei, unsurprised, smiled. I'm not that kind of woman. Besides, what did you think was going to happen? Izuku, unbothered, replied with a hint of humor. I don't know. Some of the more likely outcomes included waking up without a kidney or finding my entire house ransacked. But I didn't expect you to still be here. It's reassuring. Mei gave him a smile, one that, to him, was particularly beautiful. Well, maybe you're not as bad as I thought. Could it be that the evil overlord actually has a heart? Izuku, lost in thought, let out a small chuckle. It's been a while since I've heard those words. Now I have a question for you. First, does it not bother you that I'm seeing you almost naked? And second, you said I met you and saved you in the past. But when was that? I don't remember. Mei shrugged. No, it doesn't bother me at all. I'm attractive, and I always draw attention. And as for meeting me, it was a long time ago. I didn't expect you to remember me, though I admit it was a little disappointing. It happened at the very beginning of your career, before all of this, you know. Before everything went to shit, Izuku said, lowering his gaze slightly as he remembered better times. Back then, I was more focused on rising through the ranks as quickly as possible than on anything else. Even so, I helped everyone, and I guess I didn't remember you because I was too caught up in that goal. Mei noticed how thinking about the past affected him, so she changed the subject. Hey, don't you want to go out for a bit? I mean, we spent the whole night fucking like animals, and I think I could use a walk. Heh, that way my legs won't be so stiff. Izuku, with a touch of sarcasm, replied, and what better way to do that than going out with the failed hero, right? Now that would be interesting. But imagine what people would say. The great hero Deku, walking around in public with a stunning woman, standing close together. Those idiots will start talking about you again, and you'll be back in the headlines. Izuku responded, I don't care about that anymore. Right now, I'd rather face AFO again than be a hero. He sounded slightly annoyed. Besides, those news reporters are way too intense when they want a story. Mei raised an eyebrow and laughed. I think I hit a nerve. But come on, let's go out for a bit. Fine, let me get a little more presentable. Mei commented, I thought you didn't care about that kind of thing anymore. Izuku got up to change his clothes. I might not care, but I'm not going to let them see me looking like some scruffy idiot. Sounds good to me, I'll do the same, she said, following him into the bedroom. They dressed in front of each other, and when Izuku was done, he noticed Mei taking her time fixing her hair. Braids again? I see you're taking your time. Mei, without hesitation, responded with complete ease. I don't go out without them. They're a bit unusual, but honestly, they suit you. I know, that's because I'm a total knockout. Izuku sighed. Shut up and let's go, okay? Mei laughed mischievously. Oh no, the mighty sociopath got annoyed. Ha ha ha. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Bakugo and Shuka walked through the desolate streets, searching for Izuku. Bakugo had decided it was time to show Izuku exactly what would happen if he chose to become a villain. Shuka, feeling a little uneasy, asked, Are you sure we'll find him here? We're in the slums. Bakugo, with his usual defiant attitude, replied, Yeah. According to what Mina said, he hangs out in a bar full of villains and thieves. There aren't many places like that in the city, and the more acceptable ones are around here. Besides, I'm sick of signing autographs all morning. Shuka, in a serious tone, commented, You're the #1 hero, you know. It's normal for that to happen. Bakugo, with a touch of nostalgia, admitted, sometimes, I wish he had been my real competition. But after everything that happened, I don't even know how to see him anymore. Shuka felt a pang of guilt over everything that had transpired. We thought staying away from him would be for the best, but... Bakugo cut her off. I think we just made everything worse. Do you think things could ever go back to the way they were? All of us being friends, getting along. Bakugo, in a subdued tone, replied, the only thing we can do now is see what happens with the nerd. I think we should bring him a gift, Shuka said, sounding a little more cheerful. Bakugo turned to her, confused. We've been walking for 5 hours, and now you think of that? Shuka smirked. Sorry for making sure no skank gets near my husband. That's not what he tried to argue, but suddenly, a man flew past them, crashing into a nearby wall. When they turned to see where he had come from, all they could see was a thick curtain of smoke. What the hell was that? Shuka asked. A villain? Bakugo wondered. As they approached the man's body, they saw the clear imprint of a fist on his chest. He wasn't going to die, but he was severely injured, his ribs visibly broken. Without hesitation, Bakugo shouted, quick, call an ambulance. While Shuka was calling for help, they heard approaching footsteps. Emerging from the smoke, Izuku stepped forward. Dressed in a suit that contrasted with his exhausted appearance and messy hair, he walked toward them, slightly hunched, hands in his pockets. As he got closer, they could feel a dark, almost malevolent presence emanating from him. Bakugo and Shuka couldn't help but think the same thing as they looked at him. He looks like All for One. When Izuku stopped in front of them, he straightened up completely, making his presence even more imposing. The two heroes stared at him in disbelief. Had he always been this intimidating? They had never felt so small before him. It was as if nothing mattered to him, not even the fact that 12 cameras were broadcasting their encounter live to all of Japan, with the headline, "The greatest hero faces the world's worst hero." Shuka, stunned by Izuku's transformation, recalled that he used to be 1.64 meters tall, barely a few centimeters taller than him. Now, however, he seemed like a giant. 2 meters, he thought to himself. The Izuku standing before them bore no resemblance to the kind-hearted boy in their memories. Izuku fixed his gaze on Shuka and Bakugo. His rough voice sent chills down their spines. What are you doing here? That simple question made them feel even more uneasy. At that moment, Bakugo, unable to control his temper, attacked Izuku with an explosion. Everything happened so fast that even the live audience watching the broadcast couldn't react in time. A thick smoke filled the air, and from a distance, Mei smiled at the scene. Now those idiots are really screwed, she thought amused, already anticipating what would come next. From the smoke, Izuku emerged, surrounded by his signature lightning. But something was different. His lightning was no longer green. Now, it was colorless, an eerie manifestation of his change. With brutal speed, Izuku landed a punch straight to Bakugo's face. The impact was so powerful that Bakugo's head slammed into the ground before bouncing from the sheer force. Izuku was tired. Tired of the same thing over and over again. Of people who had forgotten who he was. Of those who once saw him as a hero and now treated him like an outcast. Everyone seemed to forget that he was the strongest hero in the world. I tried to do things the right way. Now it will be the hard way. With that thought, he threw an uppercut, sending Bakugo flying into the sky. Without hesitation, Izuku jumped after him. I warned you not to cross my path again. Now face the consequences. Shuka, watching the scene unfold, tried to activate his quirk to stop Izuku, but something strange happened. His body wouldn't move an inch. A sharp, stinging pain cut through his thigh, followed by several more slashes. Turning his head, he saw the woman who had been mentioned alongside Izuku. You're Mei. He was about to say more, but before he could react, his world violently spun as she hit him in the chin, knocking him to the ground. He didn't need confirmation. He already knew it was her. She had the same bluish-gray hair that Mina and Uraraka had described, styled in 2 long pigtails, the black dress, and the massive axe in her hands. Everything about her fit the description perfectly. The woman leaned over to Shuka, a cold smile on her lips as she whispered, Hey, did you know it's bad manners to interrupt someone else's fight? Be a good spectator and watch." Then, with amusement and greed flashing in her eyes, she added, "But if you want me to help your husband, you can pay me $1 million. Shuka, confused, just stared at her. "What kind of madness are you talking about?" But before she could say anything more, a deafening crash echoed throughout the place. Both of them looked up at the sky, just in time to see Bakugo's body plummeting toward the ground, creating a massive crater upon impact. Moments later, Izuku landed right on top of him, making the crater even bigger. The people watching from a distance finally remembered who Izuku truly was. He wasn't the weak hero they had convinced themselves he had become. On the contrary, he was a force of nature that should never be provoked. The respect that had once disappeared was replaced by a palpable, paralyzing fear. Izuku was more than willing to remind everyone why even All For One himself hadn't been able to defeat him. But the battle wasn't over. With a look of disdain, Izuku dodged a kick from Ida. Then, moving with deadly speed, he grabbed Ida's leg, activated his quirk, and slammed him into the ground. Ida's armor shattered into 1,000 pieces. Pathetic. Truly pathetic. And you call yourselves heroes? You're weaker than a child. I haven't even used all my power. Mei, who had been watching from a distance, approached with a smirking grin. Calm down, champ, take it easy. These idiots don't deserve a minute of our attention. In my opinion, it's better to make money than to waste it on useless people. How about we leave and do something more entertaining? Izuku looked at her, nodding. You're absolutely right. With those words, the two of them walked away, turning their backs on the chaos they had created. On the news, the headline was clear, from the weakest to the strongest, the true power of Deku. The entire world had witnessed the fight, and they were just as stunned by the woman accompanying Izuku. And the heroine with the fire and ice quirk had been taken down in less than a second during the fight. The truth about Izuku was starting to come to light, and with it, the forgotten feats of this hero who had once gone unnoticed began to resurface. And along with them, the legend of the Beast of the Seven Quirks. This was now the rebirth of Izuku Midoriya, the hero Deku. But it was a shame that hero no longer existed. At Izuku's house, the two of them watched the news with indifference. Izuku was lying on the couch, with an unreadable expression. Before, people barely respected him. Now, it seemed they were obsessed with him. Every time he went out on the street, they bombarded him with autograph and photo requests, as if he were still a hero. But Izuku had left that path behind a long time ago. And apparently, people still didn't get it. His gaze sharpened as he continued watching the broadcast. Those fools. He would make them understand that he wasn't the same idiot from the past. A few days later, while walking through the city, a bank robbery occurred right in front of him. Sirens, shouting, chaos. Everything happened as if he weren't even there. And the truth was, Izuku did nothing. He simply watched with cold indifference. The cameras captured every second. At one point, he even helped one of the criminals load a heavy bag of money into a van, assisting him without the slightest hint of remorse. He was about to leave when he felt a hand resting on his shoulder. That was a grave mistake. With a swift motion, Izuku grabbed the person's wrist and squeezed, hearing the bones crack under the pressure. He didn't like being touched. Slowly turning his head, his eyes met with someone he didn't want to see. It was Kirishima. The guy who always talked about manhood, but hadn't hesitated to cover for Shuka and Bakugo when they betrayed him, all while living under the illusion that his girlfriend would never cheat on him. The same guy who, years ago, chose to support Bakugo and betray him, just like everyone who had once called him a friend. Izuku smiled, a dark and cynical grin, as he tightened his grip. Kirishima tried to activate his quirk, hardening his skin, but the pain was unbearable. His body tensed, and his knees trembled until he collapsed to the ground. What do you want? Izuku asked, his green eyes glowing with a crimson light that filled Kirishima with a deep sense of fear. Kirishima struggled to breathe. You could have stopped the robbery. But you did nothing. Why? Because I couldn't care less, Izuku replied coldly. I stopped being a hero a long time ago. But. Izuku interrupted him, already annoyed. But nothing, idiot. Now listen closely. Tell those fools to stay away from me. Or they'll know what real pain feels like. He let go of Kirishima's wrist, leaving him writhing on the ground, but the redhead, in a desperate attempt, tried to grab him again. Big mistake. Without hesitation, Izuku turned and delivered a brutal kick to Kirishima's torso. The impact sent him flying through the air, crashing violently into a wall and shattering it in the process. A clear imprint of Izuku's foot burned into his chest, smoke rising from the point of contact. Izuku clicked his tongue in irritation as he realized something. Shit. That's the bank where Mei keeps her money, he muttered in frustration. Damn it, now I'll have to put up with her yelling when she finds out. Without saying another word, he turned and walked away, completely ignoring the chaos he had just caused. The next day, Izuku was back at home, deliberately ignoring Mei, who was sitting next to him with a look of pure irritation. On the TV, every news channel was replaying the exact moment he kicked Kirishima and helped the thieves load the stolen money into a van. Izuku gritted his teeth. Damn it, say something, he growled. Mei shot him a dangerous look. Shut up, you idiot. Don't talk to me like that. Izuku glanced at her, unimpressed. Oh, really? Now you're acting all dignified? Mei narrowed her eyes. What did you just say, idiot? They didn't hold back. In a matter of seconds, they launched into a fierce attack, as if they had both been waiting for the perfect moment to unleash their fury. Mei struck with the intention to kill, while Izuku didn't even try to dodge. Every cut she inflicted, he received without flinching. Blood ran down his skin, staining Mei's hands, but she didn't care. At some point, neither of them knew how or when, the fight became something much more carnal. Now they were on the couch, tangled together, kissing with the same intensity they had fought with moments before, but now both were naked. Mei had some bruises, but Izuku was covered in deep cuts, fresh blood still dripping from his skin onto hers. But she didn't care in the slightest. Her fingers traced his wounds with a dark fascination, as if they were war trophies. Izuku knew perfectly well that what he had with Mei was nothing more than a mutual interest, a game with no promises or expectations. Mei was just looking for entertainment, and he wasn't expecting anything from her either. But for some reason he couldn't understand, Mei felt drawn to him, to his chaos, to his destruction. Maybe because, deep down, she was just as twisted as he was. Meanwhile, in the meeting room, a tense atmosphere hung in the air. The top heroes were gathered, discussing what Izuku had done the previous day. Kendo sighed, crossing her arms. There's no doubt, Izuku is a beast in combat. Mina shrugged. I know he's my fiancé, but I have to admit. That kick was impressive. Kirishima scoffed, still in pain. That kick almost broke my damn ribs. If I hadn't activated my quirk at the last second, I'd be completely screwed. Uraraka looked at everyone seriously. Are you all happy now? Now we know for sure that Izuku truly hates us. He doesn't even want to see us. All Might sighed, visibly affected. I had no idea Izuku had become so ruthless. Inko lowered her gaze, her voice trembling. It seems like Izuku has changed so much over these years. He's no longer the son I once knew. Shuka rubbed her shoulders tiredly. My joints still hurt. Kendo turned to her with an ironic smile. Those cuts from that woman hurt like hell, right? Shuka grumbled. Uraraka crossed her arms, looking at Shuka and Bakugo. And you too. Why the hell did you go after Izuku alone, even after we warned you about the danger? No one responded. The truth was obvious. They hadn't wanted to believe it. They hadn't wanted to accept that Izuku Midoriya, the boy who was once the world's hope, was now the monster they had helped create. Bakugo couldn't stand the silence any longer. Even though the pain from the wounds on his side was sharp, he couldn't hold back. We wanted to apologize to Izuku, to make things go back to the way they were, he murmured, a mix of frustration and regret in his voice. Mina, sitting nearby, couldn't help but look at him incredulously. Her expression mirrored the confusion everyone was feeling. Then why did you attack him? She asked, distrust still evident in her voice. Bakugo closed his eyes, as if those words had hit him harder than any punch. His mind, clouded by the chaos, replayed what he had seen in Izuku. In Izuku. I saw the shadow of AFO, he finally admitted, with a hint of fear in his voice. He had the same aura. I swear, for a moment, I felt that monster's presence in him. Mina fell silent, slowly beginning to understand what Bakugo was hinting at. So, are you saying Izuku is becoming like AFO? She asked, her voice tinged with distress. Maybe, Shuka replied, looking at Bakugo seriously. But we're not sure yet. Now, Ida. Why the hell did you rush in and attack him? Ida, visibly uncomfortable, lowered his head, unable to respond immediately. Kendo didn't hold back. Looks like your damn blind hatred keeps leading you down the same path. First in our first year, then with your obsession to be like your brother, then trying to kill Stain. And tell me, who helped you every time that happened? Ida opened his mouth, but no words came out. The weight of the truth suffocated him. Izuku, Kendo answered for him, as if no more words were needed. Ida lifted his gaze, frustrated, but he knew he couldn't argue with her. He couldn't escape the truth. Exactly. You're an ungrateful idiot. He helped you, but all you do is hate him, Mina stated coldly, her eyes fixed on Ida. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Izuku woke up after another night spent with Mei. As always, the scene around him felt familiar, but he was starting to feel at ease with her. Mei was sleeping beside him, just like every morning, but for some reason, seeing her there didn't make him feel empty. There was something about her presence that brought him a strange sense of peace, even though he couldn't put a name to it. Silently, he got out of bed, went to the kitchen, and prepared something for Mei before leaving. He left a quick note on the table. I'm going to do something stupid. I'll be back later. Do whatever you want, but don't touch my closet. He left the house, wandering the streets with no clear destination. People watched him, knowing he was no longer the hero they once expected him to be. They knew he didn't want to be a hero, but they kept wondering if he could ever be the person he used to be. 2 hours later, Mei woke up with a headache, feeling the weight of the previous night in her body. But when she reached out and didn't find Izuku by her side, a feeling of emptiness started to invade her. It was a strange feeling. She felt fear and confusion, so she got out of bed, wrapped only in a sheet, and searched for Izuku throughout the house. He wasn't there. That feeling of loss, which she had forced herself to bury and never admit, returned with full force. Then she saw the note on the table. Her eyes softened as she read it, and a small smile formed on her lips. A strange relief and a warm calm settled in her chest. That's why you're my favorite person, she thought. Meanwhile, Izuku kept walking the streets. People looked at him with sadness, with fear. They knew they had pushed him to his limits, that they had helped break the hero he once was. And he knew it too. But he didn't care. Suddenly, a nearby building started to collapse due to a battle between a hero and a huge villain. Izuku watched the scene unfold as the people around him screamed, cried, and ran in panic. Some children called for their mothers, couples clung to each other, knowing there was no hope. They waited for someone to save them, but he was no longer that hero. He turned around, but then, he saw it. A reflection of himself, a specter of his younger self. Standing amidst the chaos, his younger version looked at him with disapproval. Aren't you going to save them? The voice of his younger self asked. Izuku frowned and replied without hesitation. I won't. And why the hell would I? His voice was laced with bitterness. The younger Deku stared at him, unfazed. Because that's what a hero does. Izuku closed his eyes for a moment. I'm not a hero. Not anymore. His younger self gave him a small smile, as if he knew something Izuku didn't. Even if you're not, you can still save us. Izuku felt the weight of those words. Memories of his childhood, of that feeling of helping others with a smile, flooded his mind. He remembered why he had fought for so many years. But in his broken and bitter heart, he had already made a decision. He couldn't be that hero anymore. Not anymore. Suddenly, without activating his quirk, a wave of green energy began to radiate from his body. He remembered the old days when fighting to protect the innocent had been his only purpose. His younger self encouraged him, do the right thing, because that's what a man does. Izuku clicked his tongue. Damn it, I'm really a sentimental idiot. Then he smirked and stretched his hands. But screw it. I'll do whatever I want. Dark whips of his power shot out with force, stopping the collapsing building in its tracks, along with chunks of debris that could have killed hundreds of people. The people watched in awe. For the first time, they saw the hero Deku again. But this time, he was not the same. He had changed, and now he was something darker, something completely different from what he could have been. And yet, whether he wanted to admit it or not, he was still a hero. Mei, at home, watched the news on TV. Seeing what he had done, she could only smile. "You're really the best, babe," she whispered the last words with a hint of love, even though she knew Izuku still had many things to work out within himself. But she trusted him. When the building stopped collapsing and reinforcements arrived to stabilize the area, Izuku, exhausted from the effort, fell to his knees. He was drained, but things weren't over yet. People started to approach to thank him, but he, irritated, rejected them with a low growl, almost like a wild animal avoiding human contact. "Stay the hell away from me," but the crowd ignored his warning and kept trying to get closer. With a single motion, Izuku activated his quirk, and with a powerful leap, he disappeared into the air, leaving a crater in the ground. Mei, who had been watching from the comfort of her home, let out a small laugh. "You still need to work on your attitude with your fans." She took a sheet of paper from her pocket, with pencil sketches on it, and looked at them while thinking about all she still had to do. At that moment, Izuku returned, bursting through the window. He was panting and covered in dust. He didn't say a word, just scanned the room. When he saw Mei on the couch, he approached and sat beside her, like a trained dog returning to its owner. Neither of them said anything. And so, in silence, they sat there, watching the news about the return of a hero. One who no longer knew if he wanted to be one. A few days passed, and during that time, many heroes repeatedly tried to arrange a meeting with him and Mei, but Izuku refused and even threatened them. That's why he now had an expression of annoyance, unable to understand what had happened, as he sat in a room full of heroes. In front of him, familiar faces stared at him with tense expressions, some with reproach, others with caution. Next to him, Mei casually counted a thick stack of bills, her axe resting on the floor as if it were just another accessory. Izuku rubbed his face, exasperated. "Tell me again, how the hell did you get me here?" "Let me guess, you bribed them." His gaze shifted to the cameras. "And hey, is this being broadcast live?" He turned to Mei. "By the way, how much are we talking about?" Mei didn't even look up from her money. "Oh, that was easy. After we had sex, we both fell asleep. Before you woke up, I gave you a sedative and brought you here. As for the amount, about $500,000, below my usual rate, but still minimally acceptable." Izuku let out a chuckle. "You really only care about money, huh?" Mei smiled with satisfaction. "I have expensive tastes. Plus, I'm a money addict. And since someone didn't stop a bank robbery, I'm a little short on cash. So, I have to get it however I can." Izuku raised an eyebrow. It was clear she was emphasizing the robbery he had chosen not to stop. All Might cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable. "Miss, could you refrain from—" He didn't even finish the sentence before Mei's axe whizzed through the air, embedding itself violently into the wall beside him. A slight cut appeared on All Might's cheek. "Who gave you permission to talk to me, bone bag?" Mei's sharp gaze pierced him like a blade. Inko, who had remained silent until then, straightened up indignantly. "Izuku, tell your girlfriend something." Mei placed a hand on her chest with a fake look of indignation. Whoa, wait. I'm not his girlfriend. Or, well, he hasn't asked me yet. I'm just the guy I sleep with, and sometimes we fight, but it always ends in sex. That's it. And if he wants anything more, he'll have to pay." Izuku looked at her with interest. "All right. How much are we talking about?" Mei crossed her arms, thoughtful. Let's see. About $1.5 million if you want me to be your girlfriend. And $5.5 million if you want to marry me. Go to hell. How much do you think you're worth?" Mei smiled, full of confidence. "Haven't you already checked the quality of the product? Do you know what I'm worth, or are you just pretending to be stupid?" Izuku gave her a mocking look. "But $5.5 million seems like too much." The silence was broken when everyone present exclaimed in unison, "Dollars?" Mei stared at them as if they were a bunch of idiots. "What did you think we were talking about? Yen?" Please. That devalued currency is worth nothing, what matters is the dollar. Momo, still surprised, shook her head. But that's crazy money. Even my family would have trouble gathering that amount in no time. Mei shrugged with a mocking smile. That's because you're poor, babe. Izuku rubbed his chin, deep in thought. It's a good amount. But only for marriage. Mina frowned. Why are you talking like you're buying her? Mei shot her an amused look. Because that's exactly what's happening. I'm offering myself. Let's see how much he's willing to pay. Izuku looked at her silently, then nodded. 5.5 million, huh? With you by my side, I can get it back. But it's still expensive. Shuka intervened, incredulous. Are you serious? You're literally buying a woman. This is illegal. Izuku didn't even look at her. I don't remember asking for your opinion, idiot. Now shut up, I need to think. Activating his quirk, he moved at high speed. His whole world seemed to freeze as he began pacing around the room at great speed. Walking helped him organize his thoughts. Meanwhile, the other heroes exchanged messages on their phones, unsure of what else to do, as all they saw were flashes of green light. All Might, they weren't lying when they said he's like AFO. Bakugo, I told you. Shuka, he called me an idiot, she commented with a sad emoji. Mina, you deserved it. Momo, do you think he'll really buy her? Inko, I don't know, but I don't approve. If he does, I'm going to tell him. They kept talking about other things, like how he treated them badly for no reason, and mentioned that they'd find a way to change his behavior. However, Mina, Uraraka, and Kendo knew the reasons for his hatred. It wasn't just Shuka's betrayal that hurt Izuku, but also the lies some had spread to divert the public's attention from Izuku, instead of focusing on Shuka and Bakugo's betrayal. Izuku suddenly stopped. Alright. Mei tilted her head with interest. Alright, what? Izuku smiled calmly. It's only 5.5 million. And you're a walking gold mine, so. He pulled out a checkbook from his pocket and without hesitation, signed a check to Mei. Here's your money. Now you're mine. Mei took the check and examined it with great satisfaction. It was a pleasure doing business with you. Inko's face turned red with fury. Son, I do not approve of this woman for your relationship. Izuku interrupted her without even looking at her. Oh, look how much I care, you bitch. All Might stood up angrily. Don't talk to your mother like that. I order you to apologize. But Izuku just shrugged. For him, morality, especially when it came to heroes, had long stopped mattering. All Might slammed his hands on the table, his expression full of rage. But before he could say anything else, Izuku disappeared. A loud crash shook the room. Everyone turned their heads and saw it. Izuku had All Might pinned against the wall, his hand gripping his throat with such force that the structure itself creaked under the pressure. Izuku's eyes were empty, showing no affection for his former mentor. His grip tightened, and that look. It was exactly the same as when All Might faced AFO. A chill ran down his spine. Sparks erupted from Izuku's body. Instinctively, All Might activated One for All. But Izuku's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Who the hell do you think you are to give me orders, you stupid bastard? I'm your teacher. All Might managed to stammer. Izuku let out a dry laugh. Oh, yes. A great teacher, huh? One who never taught me a damn thing. I gave you One for All. I can take it away. Izuku's smile widened, it was dark and unsettling. Oh, All Might, dear All Might. Seems like age has really slowed you down. A shiver ran down All Might's body. Even his way of speaking. It's just like him, he thought, terrified. Izuku tilted his head, his gaze full of mockery. You know. One for All and I fused a long time ago. I absorbed all the previous holders, and now they're part of me. One for All belongs to me. Go ahead. Try to take it. All Might pressed a hand against Izuku's chest, trying to rip the power away. Nothing happened. Absolutely nothing. What have you done? He exclaimed, almost in panic. Izuku looked at him with boredom. Me? Nothing. One for All did it on its own. That's impossible, shouted All Might, One for All would never fuse with anyone. It's just a power meant to end evil. Izuku clicked his tongue. That was your mistake, Toshinori. All of your mistakes. Believing that one for all was just a power. Did you ever wonder why it chose its holders? Why you could feel it moving inside you like an impulse? All Might held his breath. That's. One for all evolved with each holder. Not only did it grant power, but it also took a part of you and made it its own. Possessing its own consciousness was just a matter of time, and it grew tired of just being power. And it got fed up with being chained and dominated by others. The electricity crackling around Izuku intensified. While all of you kept it trapped, I let it out without restrictions. I treated it like an extension of myself, not just a tool. And in the end, it chose me. All Might trembled. What have you done? Izuku suddenly released him, dropping him to the floor. Me? Nothing. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have things to take care of. He turned to Mei with a carefree smile. So. Do the 5.5 million include a wedding or something? Mei raised an eyebrow. Do I look like an event planner to you? Damn it. Then. Shuka suddenly stood up. Did you really just buy a woman? Where's the kind Izuku who used to be my friend? Izuku's smile faded. A silence took over the room. He's dead. Shuka blinked, confused. What did you say? Izuku looked her straight in the eyes. He's dead. He took a step forward. He died when you left with someone else. Another step. He died when he saw you happy in the arms of another man. One more step. He died when you turned your back on me and chose to go with Bakugo. Shuka took a step back, unknowingly. He died when I saw you preparing your wedding. And I wasn't the groom. Izuku, she whispered, but he didn't let her speak. He died when I became the laughingstock of the church, watching you walk towards the altar while I stood outside, feeling all your mocking gazes. Everyone held their breath. Izuku closed his eyes for a moment. He died. When you forgot about me. He died the moment you betrayed me. When he opened them again, his gaze was that of a demon. His eyes had turned crimson. So don't you dare ask me where the sweet and kind Izuku went. Because you. And everyone here. Made sure to kill him. The weight of his words fell like a death sentence upon them all. All of you chose to slander me. All of you chose not to believe me. All of you chose to let me rot in my own suffering. When I was the one. The electricity crackled violently around him. The one who saved you so many times. Silence. No one dared to speak. They all felt the same suffocating knot in their throats. Izuku scanned the room, his eyes piercing through them. Everyone asks why. He leaned slightly forward. But no one ever asks what happened. No one dared to speak. What did we do to deserve to be treated like this? What had to happen for his gaze to become just like All for One's? The chill that ran through the room was absolute. They had all seen how Izuku had become something they could no longer recognize. Something that, deep down, terrified them. And that fear became even more real when his voice filled the space once more. What's wrong? Did you think I wouldn't notice your little text messages? Some swallowed hard. Izuku smiled mockingly. Let me tell you something. I'm not like All for One. The electricity around him surged violently. I'm something much worse. Because his end was in my hands. Everyone instinctively took a step back. So don't fuck with me, he continued, his voice low but loaded with threat. Because if you do, you'll get to know the real kind of monster I am. His gaze swept across the room, stopping on each face with disdain. All of you helped bury the name of Hero Deku. You made sure to slander me, to turn me into a villain before I even became one. Bakugo stepped forward, frowning. Deku, we. He couldn't finish the sentence. Izuku vanished from his sight. A second later, Bakugo was on the ground, with Izuku's hand tightly gripping his throat. And then came the first punch. And the second. And the third. Izuku slammed him against the ground with brutal force, unleashing his fury with every impact. You always do the same thing, don't you, Bakugo? His voice was a growl, each word accompanied by another blow. Since we were kids. You made my life hell. You humiliated me. You hit me. You treated me like garbage. Bakugo spat blood, but Izuku didn't stop. Then. You took my girlfriend. You took the love of my life. You took my dream. And suddenly, Izuku stopped hitting him. He leaned close to his ear. And whispered something. No one could hear what he said. And Bakugo, the explosive and unbreakable Bakugo, remained completely still. His expression shifted from pain to pure terror. Izuku let out a laugh. It was hollow, cold. The laugh of someone who had nothing left to lose. Ha. 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 God, this is so fucking funny, he said, standing up and stretching his arms. Seriously, I love how everyone still thinks I'm the same idiot I used to be. He turned to Mei. We're leaving. Of course, the woman replied, unperturbed. They turned to walk away, but before they could cross the door, Ida stepped in their way. You just attacked a hero, he shouted indignantly. How can you? Izuku sighed, irritated. I think I already told you, dyed hair idiot, not to touch me. But for you. I'll make an exception. Ida nodded, as if that meant Izuku still held some respect for authority. But then, without warning, Izuku unleashed his black whip. The dark tendrils wrapped around Ida's legs. And violently snapped them. 4 times. Ida's scream echoed through the room. Look at that. I gave you 2 new joints. Izuku said with fake cheer. What do you think, my beautiful fiancé? Mei examined his work, resting a hand on her chin. It's not quite at the level of a surgeon, but it's definitely one of your best works. Izuku smiled. Well, let's go then. You said you had a wedding to plan, right? But remember, I'm not your event planner, she teased. Shut up. The two walked out without looking back. The message was clear. Get in my way, and you will suffer. The hero Deku was dead. All that remained was a monster. Hours later, Izuku was sitting in a luxurious bridal boutique, completely bored. Mei was trying on dress after dress while he sighed in frustration. Mei. This is the 14th one you've tried on. Can you pick one already, please? I can't decide. I don't know if I should go for the most expensive. Or the prettiest. Izuku closed his eyes and massaged his temple. This is a direct attack on my wallet, isn't it? Mei smiled mischievously. Oh, darling. It's always been for that. Izuku looked at her, exhausted. You enjoy this, don't you? You have no idea, she replied with a playful laugh. Just imagining your face when you see the bill for the hall and decorations makes my heart race with excitement. Izuku glared at her. God, you have financial disorder syndrome too. Where the hell have I gotten myself into? Mei leaned toward him, wrapped her arms around his neck, and settled into his lap. Oh, come on. Even with all of that, you still want me. Izuku rolled his eyes. Yeah, that's why I bought you. Because I love you so much. I know, she said, amused. Now, I'm going to try on the next dress. Izuku let out a long sigh. Just kill me already. After several hours and no decisions made, they ended up in the most expensive cafe in the city. Izuku stirred his coffee, looking exhausted. Explain to me why the hell we had to come to the most expensive cafe in the city. Mei took a sip of her cappuccino, completely unfazed. It's simple. Because your fiancé asked for it. Izuku stared at her. Damn it. I hate how easily you control me. That just shows how much I mean to you, she said with a bright smile. Izuku scoffed. Mean to me? Ha. This is a relationship of convenience, babe. Mei feigned surprise. Really? And here I thought we were serious. It's so serious that you could skip the wedding and I wouldn't care. Mei placed a hand on her chest dramatically. Oh, look at that. I'm going to shed a tear. You're breaking my heart. And, as if on cue, a real tear rolled down her cheek. Izuku stared at her, expressionless. You're such a good actress, even your own body believes you. Mei winked at him. It's natural talent. Izuku groaned, exasperated. Ugh. Fine, fine, don't cry. Order whatever you want, I'll pay. Mei smiled, resting her chin on her hand. You know, I might fall in love with your money. Izuku clicked his tongue. Damn it. Next time I buy something, I'll check if it's going to cost me more than I expected. Mei laughed. Sorry, handsome, but you already bought me, and no returns. Izuku simply banged his head on the table. At least I'll admit, I like your body. Thanks, I work hard to keep it in shape, Mei said proudly. Yeah, sure. For someone who's had surgery, you hide it well. Mei raised an eyebrow. I haven't had anything done, darling. Everything's 100% natural. Izuku tilted his head with a mocking smile. Yeah, whatever you say. Until I check, I'm not sure, hee. Mei leaned over the table, shamelessly emphasizing her generous cleavage. Want to check? Izuku blinked. Shit, of course I want to check. He didn't even hesitate. He pulled out his wallet, paid the bill, and without another word, lifted Mei in his arms before jumping out of the cafe. What happened next? Well, he was a man of his word. And he was going to spend the whole day exploring every inch of his fiancée's sexy body. Elsewhere in the city, more specifically in Inko's house, it had turned into a war zone. I won't let you see him. All Might shouted. Eri, arms crossed, stared at him. Oh, look how much I care. I'm going to see him, whether you like it or not. The hero's expression hardened. I'd like to remind you that you live in my house, so I set the rules, and I said no. Oh, of course, the big man asserting his authority, Eri mocked sarcastically. Doesn't matter. I have enough money to buy an apartment. Oh, really? Then why don't you buy one and get out? Eri smiled with disdain. Maybe I should. All Might gritted his teeth. Go ahead. But when you run to Izuku and he turns his back on you, don't come crawling back to apologize, because I won't accept it. Who the hell wants your stupid apology? The argument ended with a slammed door. Hours later, Eri was walking down the stairs with a bag slung over her shoulder. Inko looked at her, worried. Eri. Where are you going? I'm leaving. I'm done with your idiot husband. But where will you live? Doesn't matter. Anywhere is better than putting up with that old man and his delusions of grandeur, refusing to accept that his golden years are over. She walked up to Inko and kissed her forehead. Goodbye, Grandma. I love you. And she left. Inko, heartbroken, could only look at an old family photo. When did everything go so wrong? 4 hours later. Eri was walking through the slums of Mizudafu. She couldn't believe it. Did Izuku really live in such run-down place? In the short time she'd been there, 5 different people had already tried to mug her. She kept walking until she found a house with a sign that read, Izuku Midoriya. If you're a salesperson or part of a religious group, let me save you the trouble, I won't answer. Eri raised an eyebrow, a playful smile forming on her lips. It's so obvious where he lives. How has no one found him before? She knocked on the door. A few seconds later, it swung open violently, revealing Izuku, disheveled, wearing only boxers. And holding a knife. Alright, you bastards, I think I already told you not to come. His voice was rough, but he froze when he saw Eri. She smiled mockingly. Is this how you greet your daughter? Izuku stared at her in disbelief. Eri. What the hell are you doing here? It's after 8 at night. I left home and came to ask you for money. I have enough to buy an apartment, but not to survive. If you give me enough for this month, I won't bother you again. Izuku rested the knife on his shoulder. And why would I do that? Eri smiled with fake innocence. Because if you don't, I'll tell everyone where you live. In less than 30 minutes, you'll be surrounded by reporters. Izuku closed his eyes, frustrated. Shit, I should have never taught you how to blackmail. He sighed and rubbed his temple. Fine, will 3,500 be enough? As long as we're talking dollars, yes. Izuku rolled his eyes. God. Why does every woman I know only talk about dollars? Because they're the best, a female voice said from behind him. Mei stepped out of the shadows and wrapped her arms around Izuku from behind. She was completely naked. And clearly didn't care that a minor was present. Eri looked at her curiously. So, you must be MeiMei. Mei smiled. Look at that, I have an admirer. But just call me Mei. Oh, don't get me wrong, Eri returned the smile with malice, I only know you because you're my father's fiancé. The air became tense. Mei grabbed Izuku's chin, shooting him a dangerous look. Is there something you want to tell me, darling? Izuku sighed. She's adopted. Calm down. Mei let go with a pout. Fine, whatever. Not like I was going to do anything bad. I was just going to add another million to my account. Izuku looked at her expressionlessly. Yeah, sure. Then he turned to Eri. Now, kid, find yourself a nice place far from here. I don't want you hanging out with these people. Eri crossed her arms. People like you? No thanks. That's why I want an apartment far from here. Izuku forced a smile. You sure know how to hit where it hurts, huh? Eri winked. I'm a woman, I know where to hit. Mei burst out laughing. I like this girl. Hey, tomorrow I'm picking out my wedding dress. If you want, you can come. I could use the opinion of another woman. Eri thought about it for a moment. Give me 500 and it's a deal. Deal. I like you, young lady. Being the granddaughter of a Yakuza has its pros and cons. Izuku snorted. Alright, now get lost. See you tomorrow. And leave me your number. Got it. Eri left her number and walked off. Izuku and Mei watched her go. Until, at the corner, someone tried to mug her. Eri, unfazed, pulled out a taser and electrocuted the idiot, then gave him a kick to the groin before continuing her way as if nothing had happened. Mei whistled. Heh, that girl is tough. Izuku sighed. I know. That's why I want her far from here. If she stays, I'll feel bad for the poor fools who get in her way. He smiled slyly and picked Mei up in his arms. Now, you and I need to finish your checkup. Without saying another word, he carried her inside. The next day, Izuku found himself once again in a bridal store. However, this time it wasn't for Mei, but for Eri, who had shown interest in trying on a wedding dress. The idea had excited her, and as expected, Mei had assured her that Izuku would cover the costs. Standing next to her, Mei watched while holding her own wedding dress, which she had chosen with great enthusiasm. You know, I really like your daughter, Mei commented, looking at Eri with a smile. Are you saying that because she blackmails me or because she's just like you? Both. And also because she has your personality, Mei replied with a mischievous glint in her eyes. She seems like a mix of both, Izuku murmured, raising an eyebrow. She's a money-hungry maniac, and on top of that, she has a special talent for being disrespectful. From her seat, Eri shouted, I heard that. That's the point. Izuku answered, amused. Yeah, she's definitely like you, Mei nodded with a smile, watching Eri fondly. After a while, and after fulfilling Eri's little wish to wear a wedding dress, the three of them left the store. Izuku invited Eri to the wedding, and Mei offered to make her the maid of honor, which made Eri very happy. The wedding arrived, and although the place wasn't completely full, many familiar faces from both sides were present, along with Mei's family. The only one Izuku really got along with was her brother. When they reached the reception, Izuku felt the weight in his wallet, knowing Mei had done everything she could to make everything perfect. Although the spending bothered him, Mei's happy smile as she admired the decorations made him forget it. Months had passed since Izuku and Mei married. Although there were no major issues, something bothered Izuku. It wasn't the way Mei spent money or charged him for everything, it was something more personal, something that hit his heart. While walking down the street, Mei did something that irritated him deeply again. As soon as they passed the next alley, Izuku suddenly shoved her inside, pulling her with him. Mei, startled, had no idea why he acted so harshly. Hey, what? Mei began to ask, but couldn't finish the sentence. Izuku kissed her on the spot, his touch intense, his presence so overwhelming that she felt her body heat up instantly. When their lips met, their hands moved instinctively, and the passion between them became undeniable. When they finally separated, both were breathing heavily and their bodies were pressed closely together. You know, Izuku said in a low, hoarse voice, still holding Mei's face in his hands, since we got married, I haven't said anything about your behavior or how you handle money. But there's something that really bothers me. Mei, still dazed from the intensity of the kiss, looked at him intently, waiting for his words. Your smile, he confessed, as his fingers slowly traced her skin. It pisses me off that you show it to everyone like they're worthy of seeing it. While speaking, his hand slid beneath her dress, his touch deliberate. It wasn't just desire, it was something deeper, something unspoken, something he needed her to understand without words. Mei, unable to stop herself, blushed more than she thought was possible. "And what do you expect from me?" she asked, still breathless from the intensity of his actions. Izuku, seeing the way she looked at him, spoke softly, almost a whisper, "Maybe this will help you reflect." He kissed her again, leaving no room for doubt, as his hands explored her most sensitive areas with firmness, drawing soft moans of pleasure from her. The alley soon filled with the muffled sounds of Mei, who was doing everything she could to make sure no one heard her. Finally, as the intensity of the moment began to calm, Izuku looked directly into her eyes. "Have you reflected?" he asked, as though he had been waiting for her response all along. Mei, regaining her composure, nodded slowly. "Yes. And what are you going to do about it?" Izuku insisted, now with a softer voice, as if he already knew her answer. With a look of satisfaction, Mei began to adjust her dress, revealing what she had hidden underneath. Her underwear was completely soaked from his touch, undeniable proof of the orgasm he had just given her. "You can use me to calm yourself," she said with a provocative smile. "I give you the privilege to do it whenever you want, however you want." Izuku looked at her, slightly surprised, then couldn't help but smile. "Look at the little psycho witch, reduced to this. Who would have thought," he murmured, his tone sharp and playful at the same time. "I'm your wife now," Mei replied without hesitation. "And pleasing you is my job, and my greatest pleasure." Izuku observed her in silence for a moment before sighing. "So now you're playing the role of the devoted wife, huh?" "It's not a role," Mei said, gently caressing his face. "I've already achieved my goal, and honestly, I'm delighted that everything turned out exactly as I planned." The tension in the air lightened slightly as they stepped out of the alley, Mei wrapping her arms around Izuku with a satisfied smile on her face. Izuku, for his part, looked more at ease. "Tell me," Izuku began, "why do I have to keep letting those idiots see you smile?" "Because I like imagining them trying to be like you," Mei said, a spark in her eyes. "And I like imagining you putting them in their place if they ever dare to flirt with me." Izuku let out a chuckle. "You're sadistic, you know that. But you still love me," she replied with a mischievous smile. "You know," Izuku continued as they walked down the street, "since I met you, I never said it, but I think I'm starting to love you." Mei leaned in and kissed him. "And I love your money. Don't run out of it, or I'll leave." Izuku burst into laughter. "Sorry, but that's not going to happen." "You know why?" "Why?" she asked. "Because everything I give you, I know you put it into a joint account for both of us. That money is never going anywhere, and I'll always be able to buy you whatever I want." Mei smiled, satisfied. "Smart and cunning, I like that. I never had a doubt you were the perfect man for me." "So you had me marked from the beginning," Izuku said, teasing. She admitted it. "At first, I saw you as strong, attractive, with a great sense of responsibility. And good with kids," Mei responded with a slight smile. "But you were too sweet. So I tried with someone else. Then I saw you on the news, the fallen hero, everything they said about you. It made me realize you had become the complete opposite. You were weak, irresponsible. A total disgrace. But I knew you better than the rest, and I knew you could change. So I decided to get close, and look how it turned out. With you jumping on me like a damn rabbit." Izuku murmured. "Let's not get into details, but I'll say this, it worked, and now I have you by my side." "Well, you completed your plan, now what?" Mei shook her head. "Oh no, it's not complete yet." "Huh?" Izuku frowned, confused. "There's still one part left, and it's the most important one." Izuku saw the hunger in her gaze, but this time, there was something more intense behind it. "Ah, shit," was all he could say. "You know what I mean, don't you? Damn it, I hate being weak with you. We'll do it, but..." "But what, darling? First, we'll have some time for ourselves. You can still wait a year or two to complete your plan." She brought a hand to her chin. I'm not in a hurry, but if that's what you want, you'll have to pay for it." "Of course." They kept walking, and that was when the rain started. Mei pulled out an umbrella to cover herself, but they didn't go unnoticed by a hero who harbored an unfounded grudge against them. As they walked, Izuku was suddenly struck by a kick that sent him crashing into a wall. The one responsible for the attack was none other than the hero Ingenium. Izuku Midoriya, you are under arrest for public indecency. Ugh, fuck, that hurt. Oh, look at that, the cowardly hero attacking from behind. What would your brother say if he saw you? Oh, right, he can't, he's in a vegetative state, ha ha ha. You bastard. Ida lunged at him in fury, but Izuku stopped him effortlessly, as if it were nothing. You let anger control you, and that is your greatest weakness. Ida stepped back a few paces, creating some distance. Let's see, Mr. Hero, you said public obscenity, but do you even have a witness for that accusation? A hero's testimony is more than enough, he said arrogantly. Don't you believe in the presumption of innocence? For bastards like you, there is no innocence or mercy. Izuku decided he wasn't worth his time and walked past Ida, who tried to kick him again. But Izuku dodged effortlessly, moving with precision until he reached Mei, who was waiting for him patiently. Are you done, darling? Mei asked with a smile. You're a villain too, so you're under arrest as well. Ida shouted. I think you're mistaken. Right now, I'm not a villain. I'm simply the wife of the man you're trying to assault. Then you'll also go to jail for conspiring with a criminal. Ida charged to strike Mei, but instead of stepping back, she simply smiled at him. At that moment, a bright flash blinded him. A camera had captured the scene. The crowd had started recording and taking pictures. Realizing this, Ida diverted his kick, which ended up landing against the pavement. What's wrong, Mr. Hero? Mei said with sarcasm. You see a camera, and suddenly you stop acting. Silence. You are under arrest, he snapped, not knowing what else to say. I don't think so. As I said before, you have no witnesses or evidence. Your accusation is worthless now. But my word. The word of a hero who tries to hit a defenseless woman is very weak, you know. So don't waste my time, Mr. Hero. Izuku, let's go. We need to send your clothes to the dry cleaners to get rid of this guy's filth. Damn it. And I just bought this, Izuku complained. With that, the couple walked away, leaving Ida standing in the storm, surrounded by reporters and civilians bombarding him with questions. That day, the reputation of heroes, especially ingeniums, took a severe blow. Later, Izuku, Mei, and Eri were at a restaurant, enjoying a meal together. It had become a family routine over the past few weeks. So then Kota says to me, I like you, and I answer, how much are we talking about? Oh, my little girl, I'm so proud of you. Mei squealed with delight. Izuku watched how Mei and Eri interacted so naturally. They looked like mother and daughter, and seeing them together made him smile. This was what he had been searching for all this time but had never found with Shuka. What are you looking at? Nothing, just admiring the best decision of my life. She tried not to blush but couldn't hide the happiness his words brought her. Still, she wasn't going to make it easy for him. If you're saying that just to earn a reward, you're on the right track. You, don't do that while I'm eating, Eri interrupted. Come on, you'll end up doing it too. And I hope I won't be alive for that, because if I am, I'll destroy anyone who dares to lay a finger on you. I hope so. It'd be a shame if you killed him before he left me all his money. Hearing that, Mei couldn't stop a tear from rolling down her cheek. That's my girl, I'm so proud. Thanks, Mom, Eri responded with a small, shy smile. Mei dropped the fork in her hand. Izuku froze, unsure how to react to such an unexpected moment. He knew Mei had always longed to have her own family, but adopting his daughter and having Eri accept her as such was a life-changing step. I didn't mean to. Eri stammered nervously. She looked at Mei, who was silently crying, covering her mouth with her hand. Mei, are you okay? Izuku asked with concern. You know, I think. Eri started to say, standing up from the table. But Mei gently took her hand. Please, stay. Are you sure? You're crying, and I don't want to make you uncomfortable. Yes, I'm fine. It's just. I've waited so long for you to consider me part of your family, along with your father, that I can't control my emotions. Mei, you were already part of our family. You didn't need to say it for it to be true. The moment you married my father, you became part of my family. I didn't know if you'd like me to call you that. Eri's eyes filled with tears as she spoke. Izuku understood how hard it had been for her to accept him as her father. Now, She was accepting Mei as her mother, and that was everything he had ever wanted for his family. "Oh, my sweet girl," Mei said, wrapping Eri in a tender embrace. She stroked Eri's head as she held her close to her chest, and for the first time, the girl felt completely accepted. "It would be an honor for a girl like you to consider me her mother," Mei said with a warm smile. "Thank you," Eri replied, feeling a comforting warmth growing inside her. "You're welcome," Mei answered, holding her a little tighter. Izuku, watching silently, murmured to himself, in 3, 2, 1. "Now, let's talk business." Eri, with a somewhat serious expression, asked, "How much do you want to change the birth certificate?" 5,000, Mei replied without hesitation. "That's robbery," Eri said, crossing her arms. "Take it or leave it," Mei said without blinking. Eri frowned. "Do you take transfers?" "Cash only," Mei responded. "You're lucky I carry money on me," Eri said, handing her the cash. Mei started counting it with absolute calm. "Now that everything's settled, tomorrow we'll go to the civil registry and change everything." She then turned to Izuku. "Izuku." "Yes," he replied. "You're going to prepare a room for Eri," Mei ordered. "From now on, she'll live with us." "Alright," Izuku said with a nod of approval. Eri, a little surprised, exclaimed, "Wait. Don't you think you're rushing this?" "Sweetheart, relax. This isn't rushed at all. Everything will be fine," Mei reassured her. Eri hesitated. "But Listen, daughter, if I say you're going to live in our house, it's an order," Mei said with absolute firmness. "Understood." Eri responded, a slight hint of fear in her voice. Izuku smiled faintly and murmured, "Sometimes you're terrifying." "If I want to raise her properly, I have to be strict," Mei said without a shred of doubt. "I won't argue." "Eri, it'll be a pleasure to have you live with us," Izuku added. Eri, still a bit overwhelmed but accepting the idea, replied, "Alright, it's not like I dislike the idea either." "Good. If there's nothing else to discuss, shall we go?" Mei asked. "I think that's best," Izuku answered as he paid the bill, and they headed straight to the house where Eri would now live with them. That night, Izuku lay down next to his wife. Some time had passed since Eri had moved in, and he couldn't ask for more. He was content with his life and where he was. He slept peacefully until a message made him get out of bed in the middle of the night, waking Mei in the process. "Where are you going, Izuku?" Mei asked, still half asleep. "I have to take care of something." "I'll be back soon," Izuku said in a calm tone. "Don't do anything stupid that you'll regret later," Mei warned. "Relax, nothing's going to happen," he assured her, giving her a kiss before leaving. He walked for about 30 minutes until he reached a park, where he found his mother sitting on a bench. She looked exhausted, as if the weight of the years was about to break her. "Hi, Mom," Izuku said as he approached. "Hi, son," Inko responded in a quiet voice. "Why did you call me at this hour of the night?" Izuku asked, curious. "I just wanted to talk to you, son," Inko responded, patting the empty space beside her. Izuku sat down without hesitation. "I heard that Eri is living with you," Inko said, looking at her son. "Yes," Mei thought it would be a good idea. "I also heard that you got married," Inko commented with a sad sigh. "Yes, Mom," Izuku replied with a smile. "And how was the wedding?" "It was beautiful." She walked down the aisle in her white dress, and the banquet was spectacular, Izuku said, gazing ahead with a nostalgic smile. Inko watched him, but her expression was tinged with sadness. "I can imagine," she murmured. "Mom, I know you didn't call me just for this," Izuku said, looking her in the eyes. Inko met his gaze, her expression pained. "Son, do you hate me?" Izuku looked at her, confused. "What makes you think that, Mom? At the meeting, you called me a bitch. And you didn't invite me to your wedding either. Now you're building your own family, but I'm not part of it," Inko said, her voice heavy with sadness. Izuku took a deep breath. "Mom. I'm not angry. Maybe I hold a little resentment, but I could never truly be mad at you. I abandoned you in your worst moment," Inko said, her voice breaking. "So what? Many did, but you're here now, sincerely seeking forgiveness," Izuku responded gently. "Son, what do you think of me?" "Mom, ever since I was a child, you were my greatest inspiration. You raised me alone, without anyone's help. You were my father, my mother, my friend, and my comfort in countless moments. You were the reason I wanted to become a hero. Mom, when I fought against AFO, I wasn't thinking about saving the world so that everyone would be safe. I wanted to save the world so that you could be okay. From the very beginning, you were my main motivation, my foundation, and my guide. I grew up admiring heroes because every day, I saw one walk through our front door. I love you, Mom, and that will never change. I could never hate you, that would be impossible for me. Just as I could never ignore you, because you are and always will be everything I aspire to be, my greatest role model and my greatest pride. Izuku, his eyes filled with emotion, leaned toward his mother and took her hands as she began to cry, unable to hold back her tears. I'm sorry, son, I'm so sorry, Inko said through sobs. Mom, let it all out. Everything you've been holding in for years, let it out right here. It's okay to show this side of you. You've been strong for so long. Inko broke down in uncontrollable sobs like she never had before. She let out all the pain she had buried inside for years, whispering over and over again, I'm sorry. Izuku's night may not have been a happy one, but it was liberating. He did everything he could to ease the weight of guilt and sorrow his mother had carried for so long. When Inko finally stopped crying, Izuku sat back down beside her. Do you want to see the video of my wedding? He asked with a weak smile. Of course I do, she responded. Let's go to my house, Izuku said. I don't want to be a bother, Inko said, embarrassed. Mom, my home is your home, Izuku assured her. Without a second thought, he carried his mother on his back, making sure she didn't have to walk the long distance. Together, they spent the night watching the wedding video. Inko felt as if she were truly there, witnessing her son take that step into marriage, no longer the little boy she once held in her arms. Tears ran down her face once again, this time out of pure joy and relief. Time skip. 4 years later. A moment, a meeting, a decision, a change. That's all it takes for a significant transformation to occur. A moment of reflection can change your life. A meeting can alter your destiny. A decision can reshape your world. And a change, no matter how small, can bring great things. Izuku sat in his living room, looking at a family photo. In the center, Mei, with her large pregnant belly, smiled radiantly. Beside her, Eri looked happy, and behind them, Izuku wore a joyful smile, while next to Eri, Inko, with a serene expression, also smiled. It was an image that reflected everything he had built, everything he had gained. Without a doubt, a beautiful picture to remember, Izuku murmured. Mei entered the room, interrupting his nostalgic moment. Izuku, can you help me? She doesn't want to sleep. Izuku stood up instantly, following his wife to a softly colored room filled with toys and memories. It was Eli's bedroom. What's wrong, princess? Izuku asked with a warm smile. I just wanted to hear how Mom and you met again, Eli said, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. We've told you that story so many times already, Izuku reminded her, but the little girl didn't back down. Yes, but Mom said that if I gave her $5, you would come tell it to me again, Eli insisted, looking at her father with a mischievous smile. Izuku turned to look at Mei, who was standing by the door, smiling as she playfully waved a $5 bill between her fingers. Of course it had to be like this, Izuku said, laughing. Alright, princess, I'll tell you our story. Yes. Eli exclaimed excitedly. She snuggled into her bed, eager to hear the story once more. Well, it all begins when. Izuku paused when he heard a voice from the door. Ahem, I want to hear it too, said Eri, the older sister, settling into the bed next to her little sister. Izuku smiled and began his story, with both girls listening attentively. He told them how Mei had changed his life, how she had saved him at his darkest moment, when he was on the verge of losing himself. He spoke of the woman who lifted his broken spirit, who healed his wounded heart, and how, through her, he found a new reason to live. The story of him and his wife, and how, despite everything, destiny had brought them together forever. Sniff, sniff. That story was beautiful, Mei said, wiping away a few tears. Izuku smirked. Love, next time, if you want to make it more believable, use a tissue to wipe your tears, not the bill you took from our daughter. She laughed and walked up to her husband. "Now that our little ones are asleep, how about we make them another sister?" Izuku grabbed her by the waist, and she clung to him, wrapping her leg around his as he carried her to their bedroom. "Hee, Mom doesn't know that Bill is fake," Eli whispered, keeping her eyes closed to pretend she was asleep. Eri simply shook her head. Her family was unique, but she loved them just the way they were, and she wouldn't trade them for anything in the world. At that moment, she understood that true wealth wasn't in what you owned but in what you shared. And with them, she would always have everything she needed. Nothing in the world would change that love, that bond. And she knew that no matter what challenges life threw their way, they would always have the strength to move forward, together, just as they were. End of the story. Thank you to everyone who watches my videos. I really appreciate the support you give. I hope the translation is correct. If there was any mistake, I apologize. Take care and see you next time.